All right. Welcome back to the longest running triathlon podcast in modern history.
I don't even think that's wrong. I think that's right. I know that might sound like overstated, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. If not longest running, definitely largest amount of downloads. But yeah, it is a absolutely gorgeous fall day here. It's November 4th, the year. That's right. It's 2025. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 887.
Yeah. I think it is right. I thought about it because I think that's a pretty bold claim, but that's why I added modern history because, there
modern,
could be civilizations.
That's up for interpretation, right? That's right.
Civilizations of the past that have outlasted us. But I think right now, if somebody has a longer running podcast, just let us know. Stop.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. But listen, it's a triathlon, right? It's like, and it's the new age marketing is like, say anything that you possibly can to be as polarizing as possible just to get someone to click on it. And that's it. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. There's our clickbait for today. But no, it's World 70.3 World Championship week in Marbella, Spain. We got a ton of athletes out there racing this weekend. Do a little bit of a race preview about the pros, maybe with some predictions on Thursday. But yeah, that's coming up later this weekend. But you had Ironman Florida this last weekend. I know you're like jonesing to do your picks, right? You probably already got like the board out. Probably already got your bets in.
No, I was just thinking to myself, boy, it seems like there's a world championship every week.
I know, dude. It is. It's like there is a lot of world championships, which again, like we're not. This isn't the topic for today, but like. Going back to Kona in the same event, the same day, one of the problems that you're seeing right now with the distance or lack thereof of distance between a world championship and a 70.3 is, the guys went in September in Nice. They've had plenty of time to recover and do a 70.3 focus block for this race here in November. The ladies, I feel like, were just done like yesterday. Like 2 weeks ago, and you're expecting like the best names in the sport to go out there and demolish things. But if correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was like a rollover. Like everything was pushed back, during COVID. I think this is like the last year that I think they're going to have like a late season. I think they're going to end up adjusting it eventually to where it comes back to before Kona, which is how it used to be, which in my opinion is how it should always be done. Is if you're going to do 70.3 World Championships, it was always like when it was in Clearwater, when it moved to Henderson, Nevada, like it was like 5 to 7, 8 weeks before Kona, and it was like in perfect timing and like a final buildup to where you gave athletes like a legit shot to win both, to be the 70.3 world champion and the Ironman World Championship champion the same year. I think Craig Alexander did it. I know Leanda Cave did it. Daniela Reef did it. So yeah, it kind of like it drags the season on a little bit, which I think again, like isn't terrible for some athletes just because you might have a late season race and you're like, thank God there's something for me to watch on the trainer. But yeah, it does. It's like, it's November. Like a lot of people are like, winding out. Oh, speaking of November, we'll get in the topic, and that's like an abrupt stop. But I wanted to circle back on Halloween real quick. And I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I'm warming up to it. And I say that because I feel like I do a halfway decent job of parenting. I feel like I'm a pretty good dad. But Friday was a highlight. We always go to this same family's house. The guy's dad and we sit in the front of the golf cart. The moms walk around and keep track of the kids. We just kind of cruise up and down, making sure everybody's taken care of. And we go through the first house, and Hayden, is up there. They're all, like jazzed up, and he sprints back to the golf cart. He's like, "Dad." I'm like, "What, dude? Are you good?" He's like, "Here you go, full size Reese's peanut butter cup."
Wow.
And I was like, "Thanks, man. I appreciate it." He's like, "Yeah, there you go." Every single house that they gave out Reese's peanut butter cup, he snagged 2. One for him, one for me.
Good score.
I'm all in on Halloween. Fantastic holiday. kudos. No, it was a proud dad moment. I was like, dude, okay, first off, this is a little bit much. I can't have all this in front of me. But
I think you just admitted you're a candy addict.
I did. I was like, dude, this is a little much. I mean, like, I know you don't have, we haven't had this conversation yet about my addictive tendencies, but like this is a little much. But yeah, it just showered me with Reese's peanut butter cup. No Fifth Avenue to be found, which is a little bit disappointing.
That's a little.
The neighborhood went
for
heavy. Yeah, the neighborhood went heavy on the peanut M&Ms. Okay. Which I thought was an interesting play. You usually see the chocolate M&Ms and the peanut butter M&Ms. You don't see them. You don't see much of the straight up classic peanut M&Ms. And then they also went hard on the almond Hershey bars, which I thought was also an interesting play. They're like, nut allergies, we don't care. We're going to put nuts in everything we're handing out today. So yeah, it was just my little mea culpa on the on Halloween, and the fact that I absolutely raked it in on Reese's peanut butter cups. Thanks to my boy Hayden.
Wow. Well, I didn't.
Little shift.
Well, I have a confession about Halloween. See, like, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's usually here. I mean, people come here in the nicer months, and so I didn't anticipate any trick-or-treaters, but in case, I went up to the Quick Trip and got some assorted, 2 assorted bags. I thought it would cover it in case something happened, but, assorted bags with the Hershey's dark chocolate, the crackle bars, and Goodfellows, or there's something. I don't know what they are.
Goodfellas? I don't know. They're not like a mob candy bar. I'm not sure what Goodfellas
I don't think it was Goodfellas, but it was something that I don't really like. But I think Crackle's my new jam. Yeah, I ended up eating the whole bag is the point of the confession. Because nobody came. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen too, so I only got 2
for sure. I mean, let's be honest. Like, if I'm a we're gonna get on topic in a minute, but if I'm a manufacturer of Halloween candy, or any kind of candy that I know would be bought for Halloween, I know that there's a high likelihood. I mean, obviously you said you ate the whole bag, but there's also a high likelihood that people just like purge their pantry after a week and throw it all away because, if it's not in your pantry, you can't eat it. And people just like completely throw it away. If I'm a manufacturer, I'm significantly cutting quality in that 2-week like production span. I'm going to save money on ingredients and product. I'm just kind of cut back and just make it kind of because they're just going to toss it anyway. And even if they eat a ton of it, I'm doing them a favor because they're probably going to eat way too much. And that's just, I think that's how it should be done. But but Crackle, isn't that like the Kit Kat version of like a chocolate bar?
It's Rice Krispies.
It's like a wannabe. Yeah, I misspoke there. It's like a wannabe Nestle Crunch.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, it's Rice Krispies. I think now that I reflect on that, anything with Rice Krispies on it is like money in my bank.
Okay, I don't think I knew that. Rice Krispies. Come on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I didn't know it either.
Listen,
boy,
it's
they are savory.
Listen, I could have this conversation. They had it for 45 minutes last night with a few of the hockey dads. We were going back and forth, and I generally think that if you put out Milk Duds and Almond Joys, you hate Halloween.
Yeah, basically. Well, welcome to the longest running Halloween candy discussion.
Anyway, I wanted to circle back, and I caught a lot of flack on it, but I'm coming around. I'm not coming around on Christmas. Thanksgiving's still the best holiday. It's for the best. But yes, back on the topic today. You had to go, and you brought up what I thought was a spectacular topic before we went in our usual 45-minute pre-show meeting that you can take us into now.
Well, and it's gonna pull back into triathlon. Sometimes we go off the rails with these kind of things. I think what do we have that one time we had Hemingway's lessons for or whatever for triathlon, but this is similar in the sense that like I've started doing these morning pages again where I sit down in a notebook and write three pages freehand, and it's supposedly a great way to clear your mind and to kind of set the tone for the day, and it really is. I mean, I don't know why I don't always do it, but I've been back into it, and today I noticed that maybe I was a halfway down the first page and I started feeling this tension and anxiety about wanting to be done with it, because I don't know how often you freehand write, but like, boy, my shit has just gone to hell, the penmanship, but I'm really trying to slow down and be patient with it. But anyway, the tension, I was noticing it and I started thinking about it. I was like, this is the kind of thing that I go through in workouts too. It's sort of like you get started and you're warming up and then you're kind of like, man, on the trainer, you're just like, man, when is that hour going to come? I want that hour to be here now. But I started thinking about like, when I get that way, I'm actually throwing away the most valuable part of the writing. I'm like, why do I want to get through the process before I even do the process? Because the process is where everything is. And I'm like, as I calmed down in my writing, I started realizing that I was starting to think clearer and come up with some ideas. And I was like, that's the reward. And that, to me, when I think about being on a trainer, being in a run, and always, all right, I got an hour. I want to just get this hour done as quick as possible. That's like losing the whole value of everything. Or training, 20 weeks out from Ironman and wanting to be in Ironman form already. I want I want to race. I want, what I mean? It's like we just get so far ahead of ourselves that I think we just completely waste the beauty of the whole process. And like, there's so many things in there, because it's like, as I was writing, I was really just kind of uncovering some great shit. And, it's just sort of like, it isn't even really about, making massive breakthroughs, but it's just like noticing stuff and slowing down. And I was really kind of at some point starting to really think about being patient with the writing and like not just scribbling in a way that I couldn't even read. It's all about like kind of translating your thought process and putting it on the paper in a way that makes sense, and it creates some kind of value. And I think that when we think about training, I mean, this could just be me, I don't know, but like I seem like, when I start a workout, I know that I'm going good when I actually am looking forward to the meat of the process in the workout. And it's like that's something that I'm looking forward to, rather than being like, let's just get on and get off or whatever, because then I think your brain is not even invested in connecting the learning process and how your body can get better. It's sort of like a zone 2 ride, right? What are you going to do for that? You just want it to be over, right? Isn't that most people? I would assume you just get on and it's like, you just, but boy, there's something, if you can kind of find that spot about being in there and being like, okay, let's perfect this pedal stroke, or really be conscious of creating a repetition that kind of dials you in. So you don't have to think about it later in the race, and just kind of like building that repetition is so powerful. And I think that a lot of times we try to skip it, and I don't know what that is, but I think that there's a valuable lesson in slowing down and really being in that process.
No, I mean, listen, the best, for not the best, but for a lot of people, one of the best ways to teach or explain something is through an analogy. I mean, like that's how we teach, like regardless of what we come out with, like it's always training or triathlon or life related. And I mean, honestly, like if you want to talk about triathlon, you're not going to make it 887 podcasts like we have. I tend to think that, I think we may have like another podcast that somewhat touches on this, but I tend to think that every workout that we do that flows the course of a week follows through, like what I would consider like the 3 Ps: process, purpose, or performance. The problem though is that most athletes get so stuck on the performance piece of every workout and not the process first. Because in my opinion, like if you should always start a session, look at your week as, where does this fall in the process? What am I going to get out of this process? Not how can I perform each second of every main set of every interval on every day for the entire course of the week. And I think people go, and again, like I think it's a fine line, right? You want athletes to be motivated and focused and determined, but I think when they hear that, they hear, I've got to nail and do everything great. And I think that obviously we talk a lot about expectations and those being future resentments. I mean, like you said, like in an aerobic ride, like that, for a lot of people, that's where your attention span goes to die. I mean, it's like, unless you got something like rocking me. I mean, I legit got off a trainer ride this morning at like 9:30. And if I had I did a workout Sunday, my legs are like, are a little oversore. And I rode yesterday afternoon, then I got back this morning. I was like, I just need to spit my legs out. Don't even think running is a good idea. And all I've been looking at is heart rate. And I guarantee, and I fought there, just like, I just want to make it an hour. And that's it. An hour easy spinning. And I'm just going to go by heart rate. Because I know that if I look at the power, I'm going to be so dejected. I'm going to get off because I'm like, this isn't going to look good. This is terrible. Why am I even doing this? And I can tell you right now, if I had looked, I was sure as fuck would have gotten off the bike. Because when I got done, I looked at it and I was like, oh, but that's bad. In fact, not as in like I shouldn't have done that, but ooh, man, that was low. Like, yes, that definitely like reaffirms how my legs are feeling. But the process was getting on the bike, right? Doing something that I really didn't want to do. I could have easily said to myself, man, you know what? You rode yesterday. You don't need to ride today, or you can ride later. You know, like, what's this going to do? You know, active recovery spin, like a total waste of time. Then I was like, the process was getting on the bike. The purpose was, you know, spinning out my legs to hopefully loosen them up for later on in the week where it can actually do something to where I think might allow me to do a session that's performance based. There was nothing performance based about today. The only level that you could measure performance was completing 60 minutes sitting on the saddle, pedaling in a 360 degree motion. But like you said, like the process comes in when you do things that you don't want to do. Right? What you learn about yourself, because to me, that's the stuff that trickles over. And we talk about this frequently, especially when the year gets going is, you know, you and I've had this conversation a lot. I think I mentioned even yesterday in my weekly email, was that, you know, you really want to, you know, I think most people, and this is like a pre-race convo I have with a few athletes, was you want to end 2025 like you want to start 2026. And to me, that shouldn't be like performance based. It should be, what is the process and what is the purpose? Right? Like what is the process what part of the process are you in right now? Because again, like another issue that we see so frequently with athletes is that their process is a linear A to B from the day you start working with them, or the day they start working on the plan, or the day they start quote unquote focusing on their A race, and then ending at said race. Not total overall development and total process of just becoming the best athlete they can over the course and period of time. There is no end game. If there is no end game, then there can't be like a specific performance metric that you just hit and then you stop, because no athlete that I've ever coached in my entire life or know personally has ever been like, yep, that was it. I don't think I can get any better. I'm quitting. I'm gonna sell my bike tomorrow. That's the best time. I did a PR and I'm going out in a high. No, everybody wants to do more. They want to be more involved with, you know, the process. And I think that's one of those things where we all have to kind of step back, especially this time of year when we're so far away from, you know, probably from an A race, you know, like, but that it's the process, like you said, there's this resistance, I think. And I think every athlete feels that, whether it's the resistance, like you talked about with your writing, the resistance to want to get in the car and go to the pool. The resistance to put the shoe on and go out for a run. The resistance to go downstairs and hop on the trainer. And I felt that resistance in every way, shape, or form across all the disciplines throughout my, you know, triathlon hobbyist career. You know, it's one of those things where, and I can tell you from personal experience, and I'm sure you can too, and many athletes can, is the longer you listen and let the resistance kind of like own you, the stronger it becomes. Mm-hmm. Because if you got resistance to, you know, or you want something, right, and you want to over try to do something, like you just, I want to try to get it done, or try this, like you start fighting things, and you're less likely to finish. And I just think that that's one of those things that we have to learn, you know, sometimes repeatedly, is that the longer you stay away from something, which again is why I think it's so important to stay, you know, have some sort of, you know, continuity in your training this time of year, because the longer you stay away from something, the more resistant it becomes. And that urge to not do, or that urge to give in to that resistance, grows. So it's going to take you a lot longer to go back and do that thing you're resisting than anything. And that is like, that's even like one of those, like a quote that I heard weeks ago in a podcast. It was like, something along the lines of what what you resist the most is what your soul longs for. And I think that's just like human nature is like if you're resisting, quitting your job and going out and doing your own thing and taking that leap, and you're just resistant to it, it's probably because you're like something inside you is telling you like, this is what I should do. Like, this is going to make me happier. This is that leap. But every other kind of like, self, protecting part of your body and your mind is like, no, but you can't do that. What if you fail? What if you get laughed at? What if you do, or what if you succeed? Then what are you going to do? Then how are you going to handle this? Like, that's the same thing with training. Like, we have all these thoughts. And it's like, oh, well, what if I do meet my expectation? What if I do this? And then these things are going to be, thought about me, or people are going to expect things from me. But then then I've got to keep getting better. And so I think like so many athletes toe this line between like wanting to get better and wanting to do the work, but also like, do I want to get there? Because it's kind of comfortable hovering in the no man's land of training in triathlon and racing. I don't do enough. I can always have excuses. If I do it all, if I follow the process, then I might like take myself to the next level. Then how do I handle those expectations? And again, like that's the performance piece of it. But if you're just following a process, which is just trying to get better each and every day, and what that's going to teach you and turn you into, then the rest of the stuff just kind of happens.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's kind of that, what do they say? Go toward what scares you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And a lot, and I find that fascinating that a lot of times that is the process, because it seems like we can sit there, and talk about something over dinner and be like, yeah, I really need to, just be consistent and do that. And then that becomes the scary part. It's like, oh man, but I want to see quicker results or whatever the case may be. And I think I've told this story probably too many times, but it just reminds me of how, when I was playing a lot of softball in the summer one year, and I never really worked too hard at baseball. And I don't want to say regret, but it reminds me of this because I kind of neglected the process. I was always just, ready to play. And, I'm sure you see this in Hayden and the kids sometimes is that they just want to get out and play. And certain kids probably work on things that are going to make them better in the long run than others. But I never used to do that in baseball. But in summer and softball one time I got into this thing where I was like, I just want to get better. So I would go out and throw this, I would just work on my backhand. I'd throw the ball against the wall. And then it was like, it was one of those blacktop playground things. It was fenced in. And if I missed it, I had to run like 50 yards to the other fence to go get the ball. So I was getting, like really into this thought of not letting the ball get by me. And I just would do that over. And I was looking so forward to it and I had it going. And then of course, you stop. And then the process becomes even more difficult. It's like, and I swear to God, I've been, because it's getting colder up here and I've been going into the lake every day now and plunging once or twice a day. And every single time you don't want to do it. And what I noticed is that the more I do it, the more I'm actually able to invest in the process. It's like, as you get going, you're sort of like, I just want to get out of here. I want to get out, and you can't concentrate. You're all jacked up in your head and you're not breathing and all this. And you just want to get out. You want to get out. And the more I do it, the more I can settle in and kind of just breathe and take in what is really the benefit of it is just sort of calming down your mind and sticking with it and working to the point where you can just relax. And I think that there's a big translation there. And I'm sort of doing a lot of cycling now, so that's kind of where my head's at. But I think about that with regard to cycling too, because the more I get on the trainer, the more I'm able to do that same thing. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, I'm just more comfortable here. I am feeling more in tune with cycling and the process of it. So I think it's just like, it's kind of breaking through and building that habit again. It's sort of like trying to, in a way, it's like making the process sexy again. To me, that's what it is. And like I always talk about, the more I'm on the trainer, the easier it is for me to get on the trainer, and the more I start to enjoy it, because I'm just kind of finding something inside me that is just like, and I know people hate the trainer, don't get me wrong. I get that, but I'm just saying the point is once you kind of get into the rhythm of it, or same with running and swimming's the same. I mean, they're all the same. It's all
It's a
that.
healthy addiction.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's like you start to crave it. Like you crave the activity in the process just as much as people crave not doing shit. Like I think we're all, I don't think there's any no man's. I think there's like one day where you're straddling the fence, and the rest of it is you're either building a habit of doing nothing, or you're building a habit of doing something, and then more of that something. There is no like fluctuation. And I think that's something we have to remember. I mean, like, I know for sure, like if I had have chosen to not gonna get on the bike, yesterday afternoon, Mondays are, arguably you and I's like hardest, longest days of work, coming off the weekend and reading race recaps and touching base with athletes and the race this weekend, and then looking over the weekend. And I guarantee if I hadn't have ridden yesterday afternoon, I wouldn't have ridden today. Because then I would have had more resistance to not riding than the positive like process welcoming of kind of like craving of, listen, like yesterday I didn't like go beat the house down. I just rode for an hour aerobically, and again, did look at my powers, looked at my heart rate, and just got it done because I needed to spin out my legs. Like, again, it wasn't anything fancy, but it's also why I did it today. But if that's the thing, right, is that if you continue to add up and accumulate those quote unquote non-fancy sessions that are just process based, listen, like those, I hate to break it to you, if you're in endurance sports, those make up 75 to 80% of your workouts.
Yeah.
Are the process based, you and I had the same conversation with athletes, and if they're like, yeah, like, when do we, I'm like, listen, 80% of the time, I really hope there's nothing to say on your comment. Like, I really hope that your 45 minute run is just a run of the mill. It just got it done. That means programming is right. That means you were feeling right. That means the session was right. The duration was right. It should be just kind of par for the course. It should be just fine. But then there's going to be those like 10% days where you feel like, you're the next Lucy Charles Barkley. And there's going to be other days where you feel like you should, you're like, I wonder how much I can get for my bike, because you had that bad of a day. And those are the ones that hide, but the rest are just those process days. And even on the days where you hope you have these performances, because that's the thing about performance, right? Is that the more you want it, the less likely it is to happen. I firmly believe that. I know that might sound like counterintuitive to some people, but I think the more you want something, I think you create resistance, because there's always this expectation that's force. And the more force you have, the harder something becomes. Like I used a phrase, this, it might not make sense again either, but whatever made sense to me in the moment. But an athlete was saying like, yeah, I'm trying to work this exercise to figure out what I want to do next year, and what I really want to do, and not what I think I want to fit. And I said, most sure athletes don't think that way, but what you really should do is find something that flows, not find something that fits. Because to me, a fit is like, it's not force, but it only fits one way. Like a puzzle piece, there's only one way to fit it. And if you don't put it in the right spot, you're going to bend it, you're going to break it, you're going to start pulling away at the cardboard or whatever it's made out of. Like it's one, and I think if you just flow with things and you listen and you're part of that process, and it just kind of goes and then it rolls, it's just kind of like that snowball effect. Like where you look back and you're like, oh my God, like I've accumulated a whole lot of work, instead of the constant yearning and honestly, like unhealthy desire to want something so bad. Because then even when you get it, or you find, yourself getting closer to it, things get even more tense. And like, that's why it's just so important, I think, A lot of times, athletes might think, oh, you guys are way too, holistic and way too, happy and healthy. I'm like, listen, like that's the longevity game. And honestly, like that's why you see very few people get burnt out in that direction. They might like take things over seriously, and you're like, hey, let's just slow things down a little bit. Like we're gonna get there, but a lot of it is just again following the process and not trying to hurry things. And that's the biggest, honestly, that's the hardest. That's one of the biggest obstacles of working with such demanding, high level, type A athletes is that you take those personality traits and you kind of, add gas into the fire of like the want now generation that we have. And I want to do it now, and I want to do it now, and I want to do it now, and I want to have it now. And it's like, it's either happening or there's always an excuse of why it didn't happen. But if you're following a process and you're thinking, yeah, like, cause again, like it's the deadline, symptom or the deadline, kind of hysteria that every athlete has. Like, I've got to do this by this date, instead of just finding ways to check in on a process of, how am I getting better? And then if I just keep doing that, then I'm going to be better down the road instead of, skipping steps or, trying to be performance based every single time. And then you get too serious, you see it all the time. And a lot of times it's just from athletes get stuck, or find themselves stuck self-coaching themselves or working out the same training plan. They don't really know what to do. And so then it's just, they're looking for, and I get it. I mean, if you don't have any guidance or you don't have a coach looking after your stuff, like you're probably looking for signs of improvement every single day. Mm-hmm. Every day, because you probably don't know what to look for anyway in terms of like how things are trending. So if you're looking for things, you're always going to go into hoping for something, causing more resistance, causing more tension, causing more of this, when really like a lot of it's just like really unsexy, boring, showing up and doing the work when no one else is doing it. You're not going to get a ton of credit. And the likelihood is you're not going to see the result that day. But it's all about like, as long as you're having fun doing it and like you said, like on the blacktop, like if you're just trying to get better, like so many things, and that's not a performance thing to me. That's just a process. Like I'm involved in the process of getting better. And as long as you're doing that, like it's just gonna click. And because it never happens like at once, it just kind of, happens over time. And then you realize you've gotten so much better and it's fun, right? And you're performing better, but it was never forced. It was just part of that process. And triathlon is so, demanding and so broad in terms of the nutrition for it, your freaking, all the gadgets and equipment you have to buy. Then you got swimming, then you got biking, then you got running, then how you have it all together, and you got the different distances, and how do I merge things at different times of year. Like it can be so complex. It allows for plenty of opportunities to try and chase a standard or performance metric or wanting to see improvement every single day. But I know I've said it a billion times, but the athletes that perform the best never expect and never get hung up on a session, whether it's a missed one or a nailed one, because it's just part of the process. A 30-minute run is just as much weight as the hour and 45-minute negative split.
Yeah. Because
they all fit to the puzzle. And I think if the more athletes that can wrap their brain around the importance of, the practice and the drill and I was actually trying to find this so I could read some of it to you before we started the show, but there was an article I read put out by like the main association in Minnesota about hockey. And I think this year in hockey, obviously Minnesota is like known as like the state, and then it's Michigan and then Massachusetts and then every other state behind that. But this year in Division I, Minnesota has more players playing Division I hockey than Massachusetts and Michigan combined. And the whole article was based on how they still approach it in a grassroots organic development way, while other states are trying to trace their end standard too early. But the reason that they
got
have
kids
their
on
standard,
ponds.
They got kids on ponds playing pickup hockey, and they focus on skills and development at a very young age. They don't try to professionalize and make everything so performance based so early, because then you start to skip steps and then you get burnout. But so many other states are trying to actually chase their end result, which is obviously getting all these players to go to college and the NHL, that they're taking this like performance based model from a young age and it's ruining it, versus spending, allowing kids to spend more time developing and not doing these very serious things. And it's why they've continued to be so great. But I was like, as we were talking, I was like, that's very similar as, even adults and triathletes, like we try to take things so seriously and be so performances. We want to chase this time that we forget that development and skill acquisition, aerobic, efficiency, like all these things are so important. You can't skip those steps. You might skip it for a month and see a little bit of a benefit, but then you're like, then where are you? You're stuck. You're probably, regressing. And so I think it's a good reminder for everybody to have, is that, the more you want to force it and the more you want to get ahead, the more you want to chase, and the more you have to have it by this date, I firmly believe the less likely it is to happen.
Yeah, I think last time we were talking about burnout, and I think what you were describing right there is what the impetus of burnout is pushing these kids to be fine, the performance from the get-go or whatever. And I was thinking, like, when I'm going my best, I'm looking forward to that 35-minute zone 2 run, just and getting on that trainer for an hour and spinning. That's when I know that I'm in a good spot, because it's easy to kind of get jacked about interval stuff or longer, harder stuff. And, when that's all kind of molding together, it all makes sense. And it just feels like, all right, this is part of the process. And we're talking about burnout. I can, whenever, I don't know, it's a new athlete or any athlete that's been around, and I start seeing like a lot of inconsistencies and making up times and all these types of things, and late scrambles before races and stuff like that, I can see burnout coming a mile away. But it's ironically the people that kind of just do something every day. It's not always the particular workout, but there's something going in there. If there's a choice day or a flex day and they're kind of doing something, I'm like, okay, they're in a good spot. Things are moving for them. But it's weird that the more you do it, the less apt you are to get burnt out, if you're doing it the right way or doing it on your terms and things like that. Because I do find that it's, a lot of times that happens with me towards, I've had a history of sort of like letting things go at this time of year, and then kind of coming back, and then it takes a while for me to get in the groove. And then by summer, then I'm training for Wisconsin or something, and I'm in it's just different. I feel I'm excited about it or whatever, but the less I do it, it's sort of like this is the time of the year in January. It's like, why do I keep doing this shit? But it isn't about the race. I'm already signed up for next year, by the way, for breaking news. But it's
what was that again?
I've already signed up for the
already. That's like a record for you.
I know.
Maybe since like your very first Ironman, where you signed up when you had to sign up on like the Monday at noon.
Yeah,
this has got to be a record.
Yeah, I mean, so and it's not that I just was like, okay, you're probably going to do it. Let's just get it out there. And now I'm not really thinking about it, but I am kind of thinking about like, how does this day from right now swell into that? And I've just got a little more time, and I'm trying to think about it a little bit, like you said, a little bit more organic or holistic, in the sense of just kind of get the wheels moving, and work on little things and try to find joy in the process, in the movement, in the little things that you come up with every day, and just kind of build momentum off that without doing the burnout side of it. It's like it's really kind of fun when you can think about the process in a way that doesn't put stress on you. And while you put the appropriate amount of stress on the body and everything like that, but I go back to this writing thing, and like I was just so enamored by the idea that I was tense and anxious as I started to write. I'm like, why do I want everything done before it even starts practically? It's like, that's not a good state of mind. And it's like, is that how your workouts are going? I'm not talking about you. I'm just throwing that out generally, but is that how it feels when you're doing this? If it's the case, then it's probably a good idea to kind of step back and get out of the future. It's sort of that future trip thing. It's like, that isn't even here, and it's already like giving you anxiety. And so why not pull back and just, think patiently and just do what you're doing? I mean, I don't know. I'm just always about this. I think the biggest challenge, that's sort of life's biggest, you said it applies to triathlon, but it's a life thing. We totally do that. And, I've been, I think I mentioned him a few podcasts ago, this Jacob, is it Lieberman or something like that? But he talks about, like, he's this guy that's just like, basically lets light guide his days. It's like he wakes up and he says when he thinks of something, he just does it. He has a plan, but like he said, the universe usually delivers things that need to be done. And when you think of it, you just do it, then it's done, and it doesn't weigh you down all day. Just kind of that more of like flowing with life and doing shit, like if you look over and say, yeah, I need to roll up that hose or whatever it is. Instead of saying I'll do it later, just do it, and then it's done, and then you clear your plate. And it's sort of like that. It's like, it's a dumb little thing, but I just love thinking about stuff like that. You look at your bike, you're like, gosh, I need to get on that. Well, maybe I'll just do it. No, just get on it. And, just, and be with it, because if you're just always doing shit to get it out of the way, that to me is like, it's sort of a mind virus in a way. And I recognize it in myself. That's why I feel like comfortable talking about it, because if it's just always a chore, I mean, what the hell's the point of that? Just do shit and just be invested in whatever it is.
Yeah, I was laughing because I saw this shirt that was like in the little village we were staying in on vacation, and the shirt said, in like all caps, giant font, it said, "Stop reminding me, I'll do it later." Or it said, "I'll do it later," period. And then like below it, it said, "You don't have to remind me every 3 months." Oh, I was like, yeah. And I was like, dude, that is so true on so many levels for a lot of people about a lot of things. And I think, like, again, like when you look at, and I think the biggest thing too is like, if you're already in like the mode and you're in the zone and you don't have any problem with consistency, you're probably like, what does this message have to do with me? Well, a lot of it is just like, don't try to jump from process to purpose to performance too quick. Don't forget what got you there. Yeah. And we see it all the time with people that get into the sport, that are consistent. They got their feet in the ground. They're pretty grounded. They're pretty even. They stick with the process. They do things with purpose, and then they start to perform well. And then that becomes like the shining light of why they do things. And then they lose their way. Don't forget what got you where you're going. But if you are a person that's struggling with getting going, the problem is that you're already chasing performance before you've even started a process, because you don't even know what that process looks like. And a lot of times that, even if you're a coached athlete, it's a problem. But if you're not a coached athlete, and we talked about this a little bit before, like last week about, coming back from a period of time off, you're like, I'm going to see the terrible numbers. I don't want to see, I can't handle that right now. All right, we're just going to handle getting more unfit. You're perfectly fine with that, apparently. So you're finally getting more unfit than you are seeing what the reality of the situation is, and then getting fit in the process. And I think instead of thinking about performance and what you can do, which is a lot of times what you can't do, and that's like the fear people have, is just begin a process. And I think that to me, that largely goes to just listening to what your body is craving, because that's how you start habits. Like I rode yesterday because I feel like I needed to. Then today I kind of like craved it, even though I know it's not going to feel very good and produce like anything that was like, worth bragging about or writing home about. But I did it. And I think if you just start doing something that you crave, even if you're trying to do a triathlon and, next year, and you're avoiding the pool and you're avoiding the bike and you just want to run, just keep doing that every day. 10 minutes, 45 minutes. because then you'll get up to, you're at least creating a habit, and then you're going to involve yourself into a process. What that process is consistent, that process is getting up and being, you know, accountable to yourself every day to do something to move. Like that is the process. And then you start to, you know, intertwine and layer in purpose to that process. Maybe that purpose means, well, if we're setting up for a triathlon, we can't just run, so we got to bike at some point. So then you layer in a bike or two. It's just, it's to me, it's this too much all at once or all or nothing attitude that really drives a lot of athletes out of the sport, is how performance based they feel like they have to be year round. And I think that that's just a huge problem. Like, but you need to keep at least doing something to engage yourself in some of this, and find something that you wouldn't normally do, you know, this time, you know, or, you know, in June, July, August of this coming year. That's okay. But sticking in and continuing to be in a process is just so important, because it allows you a broader, wider process to be a part of. And it just allows you more wiggle room and bandwidth to do more things. You're not so narrow. I've got to be just a triathlete. I've got to put it all together this week. Because if you look at a plan, you're like, fuck, that looks hard. You know, just run 3 times and do a strength session and call it a week, baby. Mm-hmm. That's not going to get me ready for that. I'm like, well, sitting on your ass and doing anything for you either.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's like we get so stuck in that we've got to do it perfect or we're going to do nothing. I got to do a performance based, and I've got to have it all lined up, or nothing. Just get a process started, you know, like just start building the foundation. It's like, you know, it'd be like an architect being like, I can't design this house if I know it can't be built tomorrow. Like they design this gorgeous, modern, insanely looking house, and it's forever until it's finished. Mm-hmm. Right? All the dirty work, the blue collar work, the foundation, all those things, the frame, like all these things that have no glamour, no glitz, nothing, makes up 90% of your house. And then the pretty stuff just covers it. But everybody just wants the finished product. Right. And I think that's just a symptom of our society right now that is, you know, seeping through everything, is that if you can't have it now, you don't have it. You know, and you don't see, again, like you said, you don't see the value in what that process is like. Like, I really can't think of, that's why, you know, I can't imagine what it's like to have the knowledge, and then, like, you know, maybe even and also like the patience to, like, you know, to build, like, you know, to like people that restore cars, you know, like you took the time to take this, like, you know, car that like needed to be redone, and you just spent months and months and months and months and months and months, you know, figuring it out, you know, maybe watching YouTube videos or whatever it is, and like teach yourself, and then rebuilding it, and then you got it. Like, you're never going to be more versus like just walking to the dealership and go buying one. Like, the appreciation you'll have for those two different vehicles couldn't be further apart. And I think a lot of athletes have that mentality when it comes to performance, and you know, they're either misguided, or they don't know how to, you know, dial things in, when to dial them in, or even how to dial it in, you know. And then it's just, you know, again, like, I want to talk about races and what I want to do. Then I'm like, there's so much that goes into what a day is going to look like. You have no idea. And I think that's, again, like, you know, part of the issue, I think, with with racing right now is, and all the availability that there is, that of, you know, predictability, that you see a number and you're like, I can't do that. Instead of just, let me get into the process. Let me have somebody lay it out for me. Let me be a part of it. And then just let me see where I end up, because you're going to learn so much more along the way than like elongating that process of not doing anything, which is what happens with most people. And, you know, just don't get stuck. Like, we're in November. Don't leave your feet in the cement. You know, you don't have to start running full speed, but you got to be walking. You got to be moving. And that was my sub topic today. Was, maybe we'll do it Thursday when we do some of the same, but it was maybe a teaser, but it was spending as much time as you can in zone 0. like, walking and hiking and yoga, meditation and cold plunge, like all these things that like people think they have to have, like these high intensity things, but accumulating time at what people might consider like zone zero is also like a huge, determining factor of overall health. You think about, again, I'm not going to go sidebar here, but you look at an athlete who does like an hour of training every day that's just like high intensity, but then just goes and sits in their chair and works all day, versus an athlete who might do like 30 or 45 minutes of aerobic work, but takes a dog for an hour walk, gets on the treadmill for later in the night to take a call and walk for 30 minutes and does 30 minutes of yoga. Who's better off? The second person. And so again, like there's a lot of ways to master the healthiest version of yourself, the most fit version of yourself. And again, like don't let what you read and what you hear, because what you hear and what you read for the most part of what you see on, freaking Instagram, it's all fake. They're influencers. It's people that look like you're never going to look, probably, but I can tell you right now, they're also probably not nearly as fit as you can be. They might just look a certain way or tell you a certain thing just to get clicks and followers and create, whatever it's trying to create. But just be concrete in what you want to get out of your own life and what you want to accomplish, and then just put the shoes on, start trying to get there. Because like the more you delay it, the farther away it becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of swimming, don't you have a swim camp coming up?
Swim camp, yeah, we're gonna do. I got some work to do on the run sign up page, but yeah, we'll have that's all right. I have a link set. We can put it in the show notes on Thursday. We'll do a little swim and strength camp over here in January sometime. Good way to start the year off. To again, like in my opinion, like we kind of went through it today in general, like the things that people have such a hard time with in general, and these are like foundational things, like what I'm doing at the hub with a swim and a strength camp in January, with in my opinion, like the two most difficult parts of triathlon that are most technical, but also the two that are most avoided, and they're probably most avoided because they are the most technical, right? It's like, that's why the one is the other. And so, yeah, we're going to focus on like some technique and also, strength training, making sure you're actually moving right. And I think a lot of people I think strength is becoming a lot more, haven't been in the sport for such a long time. Like strength training used to been like people were allergic to this. I don't want to put on any muscle. I don't want to do anything. And now it's like everybody wants a strength training. That's all for a lot of reasons. But it's definitely good for you. But that's something that we'll offer in January. And just like we talked about earlier with the resistance piece, while we've got the swim and the run camp going on here, I know you've got a bunch of opportunities at your wellness freaking resort, it looks like, up in Wisconsin, to work on that specifically with like your adventure camps and stuff like that. So again, like you can talk more about that, but I love the fact that there's just so many opportunities to address all the areas, whether it be tactical or technical or like the side of it, like the mental piece, that I think people just don't put enough time into that specifically. Like the stuff that you're offering up there, I think is so underrated. And I think people would get so much value out of stepping away from, again, the performance piece, right? And moving back into like things that would help them, be more a part of, or at least stay in a process longer.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's basically, I mean, I like to call it the like a wellness lodge or retreat lodge or something up here. We have the pristine, perfect outdoor open water swimming, but we're doing 4 adventure camps this next year, winter, spring, summer, fall, and there's everything from, we're going to do cross country skiing. We got a full on like basement gym with everything you'd need, and, recovery stuff and just treadmills and ellipticals and all kinds of stuff like that. But we, like the January one is the winter, and I just, it's a great idea to get going. I mean, for me, it's like a kickoff in the sense of like, it's a shitty time of year and we kind of get it going and force everybody outside. Hopefully there's going to be snow. I mean, usually is, but, and the ice will be on the lake, but we can, do all kinds of hiking outside and cross country skiing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you can go check into that. I made a website for it. watersharpensiron.com is the link, and we'll put that in the notes too. But it's like
drop that in.
I mean, it's like there's this like the adventure camp. The whole concept is basically I look at where you're at, you tell me where you're at, and we kind of put together a whole list of shit that you can get done over 3 days, and we have basically lodging and food is included up here, and some great people, and we've had some awesome times with like-minded people and people that just like to do shit and get going, and it's a great way to kick off the year in January. And then there's a spring one, it'll be wetsuit swimming, and as far as you want to go, as safe as you want it to be, it's all here. So lots going on.
And I can tell you from having been up there before, it's gorgeous. So try to make the trip out. And again, those are in January. One here, one there. But yeah, if you're looking for a great way to kick off your season, or if you aren't sure you're going to be able to kick off the season, because that is the hardest part, right? Is getting started. Find one of those camps, one of those opportunities to help kind of, recharge or upcharge, your way to get back into things and get moving. Cause again, in order to be in a process, you got to start the process, and I think that's kind of how I broke things down, and we'll close it out here in a minute, but like how I broke things out last episode in terms of like, training for, 5-6 months as an athlete, then training for 3 to 4 months as an endurance athlete, then training for a couple months as a triathlete, whatever distances. That's kind of the same way you should look at your season, honestly, like 5 to 6 months of just straight process, 3 to 4 months of process meets purpose, a little more purposeful, things a little more direction. I mean, that's like the build phase. And then like towards you, when you get to that like 2 to 3 month window, depending on the length of the race, then it becomes, then you're kind of the trifecta hits, and it's like your process meets process and purpose, and that equals performance. But if you're starting January 1, you're like, I gotta have performance. The likelihood, and that again, like, that's why 90% of all New Year's resolutions fail, because they are concerned about the performance and the product and the result, not the process to get there.
That's a good point.
You can't have it overnight. So yeah, fine. Be involved in the process. Do what you can to start the process. And if you're already in the process, hang on tight, baby. The holidays are coming.
It's always, I was just going to say one more thing is like, do you have what it takes to train with a 62-year-old in the winter? I'll acclimate you to plunging and sauna like you never had before. Well, maybe. I'll say who knows, but yeah, it's want a process. You better start it now, because hanging on to one through Thanksgiving and Christmas as a whole. We should give awards out for that. But yeah, as always, we love you guys and we appreciate you. Go to our website, C26Triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike or have any questions for him, reach out to him directly, Mike at C26Triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me, Robbie at C26Triathlon.com. All right, man. I'll catch you.
Check your Thursday.
Thursday it is. All right. See you.
See you, dude.